Voy a abrir el micrófono.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Buenas tardes.
Hola Luis,
Hola,
¿cómo
buenas
estás?
tardes.
Hola, hola, buenas
Bien,
tardes.
gracias a Dios y ustedes.
Bien, gracias
Bien,
aquí.
bastante bien.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Sí.
Hola,
Sí.
Solange.
Hola Solange, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, hola. Bien, ¿y ustedes? Saludos.
Hola Ani.
Hola.
Buenos días, buenas tardes a todos. Muchísimas gracias por unirse a esta reunión.
Thank you for joining this meeting this afternoon. If you want, we can wait for a couple of minutes to wait for our colleagues to join. We have 33 people in the meeting, but I would like to ask for a little bit of patience to see if we have more people joining in. Thank you.
Bueno, creo que ya podemos ir avanzando, ya tenemos más personas, pero creo
We
que...
have more people now, and I think we can advance. And so thank you very much. We will begin with this meeting today on the convergence of the initiatives that we are doing between the IDB, the SENSE, and the PAHO. So thank you very much for being with us today. Firstly, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Daniel Salas. He's head of the vaccination unit in the PAHOs. Thank you, Martha. And I give you a warm welcome. And as Martha says, we've been working obviously jointly with them and the IDB in a work that is opening up spaces to have a digital document for COVID-19. And I know this has involved many areas, especially information systems, regulations, and the gathering and the emissions of the certification as such, and everything that you already know about. But what makes this approach very interesting is that it's opening up gaps and it allows us to dream about other uses, both for other vaccines that are important to have standardized documents documents and that are recognized by different countries, but also eventually for other uses that might be important in the issue of public health. So we are very happy. And so we thank all of the participants that we know that you have been dedicated all your efforts to move this initiative ahead. And this is a first step, and it creates a lot of expectations for what's coming in the future. And we will be checking what are the following milestones in relation to digital certifications. So really, thank you very much for the effort, for the work, and I hope that the meeting will be very productive. Thank you, Doctor. I think that first of all, to recognize the work of the EAH, the organization that has been leading this process, and Dr. Marcelo Agustino will join us very soon. But in the meantime, I would like to give the floor to Jennifer Nelson, who from the IDB, she's one of the people that has been accompanying this work. Jennifer? Thank you, Martha, Dr. Sales. So we and all of the people, digital solutions in the bank. And I am so happy to be involved in this. And before anything else, we would also like to thank the PAHO. And in terms of digital health, as it was mentioned before, like EDH and Marcelo and his team, and for the vaccination. So Dr. Salas, we thank you as well as Martha for being today. And in fact, we are very happy in this sense. And also thinking about this, maybe thanks to the work from the country's member of the PAHO, the vaccination has been also very important. And now combining the efforts and the potential of digital solutions, we have other opportunities to be leaders in terms and of digital certifications, and to also have digital work with the data. So we thank all the countries, and without the sense, we would be nowhere. So thank you very much to Carlos Núñez and sometimes he hasn't been sleeping for weeks at a time. So because we're working so hard in this project. I would like to tell you that we began this project with just 5 countries, but with the courage of the countries, we have increased the effort to 15, and now we hope to continue growing until we complete the entire region. This project has had collaboration and has put the institution in the global map. This has been very much used and also by other countries outside the region, and we have learned and used the learnings from the other countries. And also getting now to get into the most interesting phases. Thank you for your trust, passion, and courage of all of the countries that have been accompanying us, and especially to our team also. And we will continue because it's really worthwhile for the region. So thank you so much. And now is Marcelo D'Agostino. He's connected. We're so happy that you are with us, Marcelo. You'll be welcome to our meeting. And now you have the floor now. Thank you. Sorry for taking a few minutes being late. Thank you for Jennifer. She rescued me because I just couldn't find the link for the meeting. Well, very briefly, because I'm a little bit late, but I would like to mention the IDB, the SENSE, and they're more than partners. We've been working together here and with many other initiatives, which on the one hand, it gives us confidence and peace of mind that we are really advancing in an initiative that is sustainable, especially because these are all non-conventional issues in the technical cooperation lines. So not everyone understands them, or many times there is like an understanding just in the surface, and then things don't progress because then you go back to the collaboration lines that are more conventional, more traditional, but to work hand in hand with the IDB, with digital transformation, and also with all of the collaboration like sense, really it's just fills us with much satisfaction. Jenny was also mentioning how this escalated to a global level, and I would like to mention the immunization team, Marta, Carlos, Marcela. And sometimes it's difficult, to mention all of them, but in the PAHO, there's a very strong line there, and we emphasize interprogrammatic work. And we have been for a year doing this in an interprogrammatic way. And that's why sometimes we call some of the meetings from our area or department, or sometimes it's done by the immunization area. Sometimes they're summoned by the IDB. And that's why we all work together for one single objective. That's why I wanted to emphasize this. And I will be here listening to the meeting. And thank you, Daniel, also for having sent the email on behalf of both, which was very well received by the colleagues from all of the countries. Thank you, Marcelo. Now, I would like to give the floor to the operational arm of this project, to SENSE, and which has been our permanent ally, and as Marcelo said, our permanent friend. Mike. Thank you, Marta, Dr. Salas, Jennifer, Marcelo, for this meeting. I would just like to thank you for the confidence that you have placed in us in this work that is so interesting. And I would like to highlight what Jenny said, that we began with 5 countries, and now we're more than 12 countries, and which shows that we are in the right path. Otherwise, the 5 countries would have fallen out, and the ones that we originally began this project with. And this means that the PAHO and the IDB could detect the need with the participating countries, and the countries have been available to and available. And also to thank you and the institutions that have been like a principle to be that make us be this technical arm, and for being so effective in all of the technical lecture, all the training and the work that has been carried out. And that speaks so well about the local teams, but also about everyone, because we all want a more connected health. So I would just like to say thank you, and that we're very happy with the results that we have seen so far. Latin America can do it. Thank you, Martha. Thank you. And I think Jennifer and Marcelo had mentioned, and you are emphasizing that the region has always been a pioneer, and we will continue in the same path. So thank you all for your words. Once again, thank you to all the countries involved and present. Be all welcome. And now I would like to give the floor to SENSE, that will present the convergence of the initiatives of cross-border interoperability. So please, Mai. Sorry, Carlos. Yes, I will take control from this side, and I will share the screen. I think that everything is ready. So good afternoon. My name is Carlos Núñez, subdirector of the SENS and also a coordinator of LACPAS, the initiative that probably the people who are here know me, and because we have interacted in more than one occasion. So the title is Convergence of Cross-Border Interoperability Initiatives. And the objective is to show you the milestones and strategic and technical guidelines for the joint execution of the LACPAS and OPS-DDC projects under this context of convergence. The structure of these presentations is the part of welcome has 5 points, and we will begin with the context of this initiative, a brief explanation. It's always good to remember where we are. We will show the main milestones of each initiative as at February 2023, and then we'll go to planning, to where we're heading to, and this is related to points 3 and 4, which is to explain the technical route that today we were doing associate to how the projects began and the relationship with all of the countries, and to show you which is the recommended technical path or route, and then to go to the components that we want to make available in the region. And we would like to do it within a process that is as simple as possible. And ending with the upcoming activities in the short term. Basically, these are some that we have already planned, and in the medium and long term, and comments on what's coming during the second half of this year. We will begin with the context then. Just to remind you, when we talk about convergence of initiatives, the first one is digital transformation and health for COVID-19 in Latin America and the Caribbean. LACPAS is the short name that arises as an initiative financed by the IDB with a 3-year duration and 3 phases that seeks to obviously close gaps and drive the interoperability in the region, where the first year was related to, and obviously due to the contingency that we were going through, is to have a COVID-19 vaccination certifications. Then we have the initiative that was arose from the WHO, and how do we evolve these COVID-19 vaccination certifications so the different initiatives that started to rise in the world could also interoperate between them. And that's where the WHO with the DDCC guidelines started to work on something that was a little bit more technical and having concepts, proof of concepts, in order to have the different certifications and try to have they would have the same standards. And then the DDCC PAHO, that was something more concrete, where we tried to have the same thing, the region that we had in the first phase of the project, and that obviously to extend it to the other countries that didn't have the opportunity to participate in that first stage, and the evolution maybe use the DDCC that's global, and always thinking of using the same structure and standards for other areas. Though these are the 3 initiatives, and especially the ones that are more related to deliverables, and is number 3 also aligned with comes out in the World Health Organization. Today, this is the world, this is the map that we have in the region. These are all the countries that are in one or other initiative, 16 currently. The idea obviously is that we continue growing, and that regardless of the initiative, we can work all together so that all of the deliverables and everything that is developed for the region be made available in a very simple way for all of the countries. And this is what we will explain in a couple of slides. Now, looking at a few months ago, there were some important achievements and progress associated to one or another initiative. In April 2022, we had a milestone that had to do with the IHE arriving in the region, working in Latin America and the Caribbean. This is the first time that this organization that wants to promote the health interoperability standards was working with multiple countries in this area of the world, and it was under the LAC pass, and they took on all of the proof of concept testing. And in the first Connectathon that we also did it in a cross-border fashion in the region. So the first milestone also was to work with them. That was a very new organization for the organization and for IHE, taking into account that we had to make many adjustments due to the time zone differences. And this had the result with the execution of the first Connectathon in May and June. This was the first experience of cross-border interoperability for this region. That was an event that was quite historical for the region. We tested the vaccination certificates under the standard that we were working then. It was the Euro DCC, and we had many countries participating, and it was successful. And the 8 we left in a technical capacity to go and look for their equivalents with the European Union, and then go to production. And also with a series of workshops that were carried out during the event. The event was larger because even the PAHO was also carrying out very important meetings regarding immunization. And we had Raxel working with the countries and trying to power and drive the network. Then in October 2022, initiates the PAHO DDCC project. Maybe Sonia can comment more about this. Well, last year, between October and December, we did a work that was quite active with the region countries. In fact, we started in September with the application of a tool for maturity assessment regarding the certificates, digital certificates, and 10 countries participated. And we were doing a series of seminars and trainings to these countries with the objective of addressing a group of enablers that were deemed necessary for the generation of a certificate, to do the test for generating the certificate. So I would like to highlight that there were 4 countries that arrived to the final exercise to issuing the certificate, which were Ecuador, Chile, Guatemala, and Paraguay. So congratulations to them. I know the effort was quite big. It's no easy thing to do because the teams always have many things to do in terms of technology in the health area. So we thank you for the commitment. And we ended in December with the same seminars where we went from the definition of the concept of interoperability, going through a presentation of FHIR and also IPS. And we tried to see the definition and the explanation of the DCC that wanted to participate. There were more than 10 countries, and in that they participated in the cycle of seminars. So that was the participation and engagement was very good in general. Thank you, Sonia. And afterwards, we continue with December 2022, where even though the work with the World Health Organization was good, where we wanted to share with them our experience and the enablers that were created in 2022. We were formally invited to a proof of concept testing and first tests. So some countries of the region participated, and also to test the standard. And obviously that was work that it was very useful for the WHO, because they realized that there were some documents that they realized they had to update the definitions of the DDCC. So the participation of the region was one of the most massive ones. If we take this by geographical regions, it had a high presence from Latin America and the Caribbean. And that world event continues. The Connectathon is a continuous process, and the idea is to continue testing. It is to the extent that the WHO makes possible the testing instances. So if you didn't participate, be very attentive, and because there will be another instance in you doing this. Then in February 2023, that goes hand in hand with the results of the technical testing and the work that we have carried out in the different initiatives and from the different organizations and the questions that were raised from the countries themselves. And they announced a series of updates and definitions associated to the DCC framework. And I summarized this in 3 main points. And with the conversations that we have had to date, first is to generate a productive environment for the ECC. We have this in a testing environment due to a first definition. We will have a productive environment. We will be working on that, and the onboarding process and how to get into that productive environment. And this goes hand in hand with a support associated to governance in a global framework for vaccination certificates. And we will support this whole process where the different nations must have between them. And then it's the extension of this COVID certificate. Probably we will not call it COVID certificate. We will probably call it just a vaccination certificate, but using the standards also for other vaccinations, and something that can be extended to other case uses, which has always been our understanding and that we intend to test in a couple of months. And thirdly, the participation in the second Connectathon LACPAS. This Connectathon is coming, and there's a great interest in the participation because we will test the DDCC extension and also with the work done with the PAHO. So this is very good, and we will check how we can make the invitation, how we can extend the invitation to other countries, because the first Connectathon was also open to other nations, but there was not so much adherence. So we expect that according to the first Connectathon, there will be more interest from other regions of the world to participate in the coming Connectathon. This is the outlook of the months that have elapsed. And so the region is really well positioned in terms of what has been worked on in terms of IPS and vaccination certificates. Now, here we can stop, and that's the context of where we are. No, the second question is, where are we going to? What are the milestones that we want to do regarding convergence for the coming months? First is development of enablers that end in February in the first version. This doesn't stop here. It will continue in the coming months. and in DDC, but there's a first concrete version that can be made available to the countries, and that is the work that we will start doing in March. In fact, tomorrow we have a technical meeting, and the idea is to work strongly in March in the implementation of this first stage of tools for IPS, do some tests that are very simple but very relevant associated to this, and also continue with the DCC training. There's a complete agenda that Marcela will tell you about, and also work on technical tutorials that we will be doing in the months and using the instances that are already set up. In April, to continue with the IPS tests, probably free up second and third versions of the enablers. The idea is to integrate the greatest amount of tools possible and to do FIRE transactions and other ones that are like a summary of international patients. And the idea is to generate this vaccination certification from the data that the IPS has, and to start with some training regarding clinical terms. In May, it's a continuous process, so we will continue trying the IPS, and in May we want to extend the COVID certification towards other vaccines, and we will see how the timeline of the PAHO works regarding this. But we will not wait for them to have a definition. We will implement the subsets that are necessary and which will be defined regarding which is the vaccination of interest, where we will use the same DCC structure. And according to that, we will implement the necessary subsets and other tools to generate the certifications or certificates with that information, and with and also test the terminologies. We will need them. It's an enabler that is needed. So some countries have something implemented and have experience, and others do not. So basically, the package considers the enablers to implement and to do some case of use with them. In June and July is the final part of this regarding tests, IPS, and also the obtention of the DDCC certificate. If the definition exists, there are tools in order to do it, but they haven't been tested. The idea is that we can also obtain it from a same set, so we can do the entire run. So we have to do some adjustments to the WHO definitions and some observations that we have found in the technical work, but that's where we're heading to, and proofs of concept with verifications and verifiable credentials, and based on the repositories in those countries that don't have a signature that is needed for the vaccination certificates. So that's why we are exploring with the team of how we can, with the LACCHAIN team, how we can do that. In July, the final milestone is to have the final test done, the registry in the platform for the Conectathon, and to execute this Conectathon LACPAS. There are 3 tracks, which is the patient summary, international patient summary, the DDCC / another vaccine. And the third one, it's optional because there are aspects, obviously, that we have to check with the countries, but to manage to try the chain. And this is something that will be incorporated, and we hope greatest amount of countries can get to test this. These are the main milestones for the coming months. There is a lot of work behind the scenes, a lot of development, and obviously we will be raising and creating a workshop for all of us. From LACPAS, we have considered this, but the idea is that we can consolidate this in one unique instance, many creation of tutorials, and this will be key for the continuity of the technical consultations and what could rise up in the implementation. There are dedicated teams for LACPAS, and since these teams are working together, and this it gives rise to the third part of this presentation that has to do with the technical route or path. This is the initial technical route. We can see here how the countries, to the extent that they were joining the different initiatives, they were maturing their processes and the interoperability issues by the requirements of one or another project. We began with DCC there, that at the beginning that was the standard to do the certifications, and the contingency wanted us to adopt something very quickly to exchange with the rest of the countries, and DCC gave the answer there. And obviously cascading this instance, and with the COVID pandemic, we couldn't exchange certificates with countries that have a different definition. And from there, we started to reinforce this from the DCC. And the idea was to cover these differences in the different confidence frameworks. And it started to become concrete in the fact of issuing the certificates. The countries follow that route. And then those that had started working with the CC and also from LACPAS, we take them also to IPS, because that was the objective of the second phase, is to do an exchange of data and cross-border patient summaries. That is an enabler that also helps to facilitate all of these exchange processes. And this was an initial path, because that's how the levels of difficulty rose and in each of the phases. But the truth is that the technical proposal, or what was technically correct in terms of managing the efforts and the resources and to generate sub-products, is more than just a linear route. It's more like a pyramid where the IPS, or where the data set is, allows to generate other sub-products like the vaccination certificates. That's why the recommendation of the technical route to follow has to do with implementing an IPS to work on the IPS and as of the data that are in certain areas of an international patient summary to generate a certificate with the structure of the DCC for COVID or other vaccines, and as of the DDCC, create the EU DCC that some countries have in a productive environment today. Obviously, if we take this individually, DCC is much less than an IPS, because the necessary data continue to grow, and also the knowledge related to health standards. But in terms of efficiency, if we wanted to say to have an IPS in a couple of steps, I can generate the certificates that are defined here. That's why we are trying to aim with the tools that are being developed and that are being given to the region. We're aiming to have this technical route to go from the entire data set towards the certificate. The IPS is the minimum and non-exhaustive set of clinical data that allows to have this cross-border interoperability regarding patient data, and it contains all of the information that you can see there in this diagram of what we want to undertake, or at least the minimum that we should have at the region level. Obviously, is our data that is a little bit more technical for this type of messaging, the required ones. And we do have to take the immunizations box because it will allow us to create the certificates. And DCC in its inception based itself on the information of this section of the IPS. That's why from the IPS, we can create a DCC. There is an artifact defined in the repository of where this is all explained and how this DCC is built upon, and with the tools that we will make available. Sonia, if you want to remind people what is DCC? The DCC is a documentation for COVID certificates. DCC has two approaches, the vaccination state and the test results. So we have focused on the vaccination stage, which is the certificate where the vaccination administration is described for the person. And it represents obviously a basic set of data that are specified and follow the HLS-7 failure mode, which is one of the big, it's based on an interoperability standard. So its structure is well documented. And this is a project that the WHO considers not only technical information, but also artifacts like Carlos mentioned, a series of artifacts that allow to go from the understanding and interpretation of the information until the generation of the certificates themselves with the equivalence, with the relationship that this certificate has, like its equivalence in paper. It's very well documented. The cases of uses are documented. It's very well in that sense. So we focus on that line to advance in the activities with the countries that they could comply with certain elements that would lead to generating the certificate, where the set of data, the data set is analyzed. And what we want to do here is that the country can do a correlation between the proposal made by the standard of the data that are defined in a vaccination certificate versus the national reality. That is a very important activity because it allows doing a convergence and have a comparison between the data set that is defined by each country, and to have that minimum data set to get into the cross-border interoperability, which has to do of what are the data that are or exist cross-sectionally, and what we can do at the Latin American level. Secondly, it's a repository. We consider this necessary, and each of the countries should have a repository where they can host their data, a standardized repository based on FHIR, so they can continue with the exercise of generating the certificate and the signature. That's the technical route. And the countries that already did this follow-up, you understand that it basically is to repeat the same activity. So we want those countries that did not participate or those that did not manage to do all the activities to have the opportunity to do it, like leveling the floor, and those countries that might want to come back and refresh and to do what they did. And as Carlos said, in the future, this will get into a connectathon where the WHO is interested in testing this in Latin America, and we can be a very good example of progress in that sense. We have time to get prepared, and then this is an open invitation to you all. And also we have seminars. We will detail how we are addressing this, but these are seminars that seek that whoever participates can have their own inputs. They can have their own components, their own infrastructure to advance in order to advance the cross-border interoperability. Thank you, Carlos. The next point, and going hand in hand with the technical issues, these are the components. We don't have much time, so I will go very quickly through this, but basically I would like to show you is that we will make available a bundle or a Docker actually, in more technical terms, that will allow the countries to have a set of tools, which are the ones mentioned here and are defined in the presentation that obviously we will share with you. But each one of these components work like a Lego and will allow us to do the exchange of data associated to international patient summary. And this is the idea. Supported by technologies, clinical technologies that will allow us to do these exchanges, because sometimes there are differences regarding the concepts or what are these subsets that one or the other manage. So this will be quite transparent for all of the countries. And this is what we want to provide in this bundle so it can be implemented regardless of the initiative. The idea is to put everything and make it available in the same initiative. And also there's a central node where it has centralized and decentralized components to manage the information that will be exchanged between countries, like safety or certificates. So these are the two main components. And the idea is to make available this to the countries. And there's a repository proposal, and because we have different teams working on this, we want the countries not to go out and look for each of the repository, the tools that they need. They will be put in a central repository, and now we are providing this, and we know that we have an IPS repository that is DCC and technological points, as Sense has mentioned. Then we have La Chain, and in the road we will understand that this figure of components that is defined between the countries this is a live document. It could be modified in the way, just maybe adding, or maybe it has parts that we don't need to use. Obviously, there will be updates. The first versions will not have the whole package. This will be a growing thing, but in a couple of weeks, we expect to give you a first version with everything complete, regardless of the updates that we will give you, and the nature of the repositories that we can update, and the unique Docker can be fed from the references, having one latest version available. So the countries can go out and look for this and implement it. Obviously, each of the changes that are done in the updates will be duly communicated, and to explain and show generating maybe some workshop or tutorials. The idea is to level the floor in the region. We know that some countries have many of these elements. That's why we wanted to make it modular. I can have a technological service. I can use it. I can use mine, or maybe I can work on the same basic bundle and take it to production and implement it in the country. That's the idea, that these tools are used as a from. So if there's a country identifies other components or other cases of use in with a national logic, they can also make use of it and implement it or improve it accordingly. Sorry that I went fast through that, but we're running out of time. Upcoming activities, this has to do is of how do we continue doing this? Remind you of the next steps. This will mandate the direction towards where we're heading, the deliverables that are made available that are associated to the tests that we do, and the entire training process that will accompany each of these deliverables. And remembering that in July, we want to check 3 tracks: the patient summary, the certification, the vaccine certificates, COVID and non-COVID, and an optional la chain to have all of these decentralized signatures. And Sonia, I give the floor back to you to know what are the next activities. Very briefly, these are the activities that were carried out in February, seminars that basically were just introductory and for context, and basically context, interoperability, and HL7 and IPS. What's coming in terms of DDCC between March and April is to address the documentation as such, advance in terms of the definition of the understanding of the data set from DCC, and also, as I mentioned before, the data repository. This is a demonstration and practical session where we will show what is a service based on HL7 and how we do that. And then we will see the transactions that are supported by the DCC, more focused on the understanding so we can generate the certificates themselves. In the meantime, we will do a presentation where we will explain how we set up the message. The first message to get to generate the certificate was HL7 Fire, and we will do a presentation of a more demonstration purpose on how you do that element. And we have also contemplated finishing the generated of the DCC certificate in April 13. Also with the demonstration, this would be a practical exercise where we will use the artifact that the WHO has available for this. It's not that we code something from zero, but as I said, there's many components that are made available. And the objective is to get to this point is to show how to use it, how to install it, how to generate the certificate based on that artifact. So Carlos, now, and together with this that has been already set with training dates, every 15 days, every Friday, there's a technical committee we will make available. These are open sessions because we will do tutorials regarding what the first instance will be, the first components of this bundle, as I showed you before. So this will contain for DCC, for time constraints, we didn't make it available now, but it will be provided in the same package. And therefore we will interact and be making comments on these training cycles. And there are some workshops that we will definitely have and open to everyone so we can reinforce everything that is being done and the technical committees and for these enablers. The information will always be available at the Raxel website in the courses section and in the technical tutorials and seminars. But this doesn't end here. This doesn't end with the last, the connectathon of the end of the year. It's like we just shake hands and say goodbye. No, what happens in the future is that the idea is to continue driving these initiatives, this operation between countries and institutions, to continue with the cooperation and great synergies that exist in the region, so we can co-build knowledge and work on standards to interoperate and make many proofs of concept that will allow us to have the entire map painted in the future, so we can have this interoperability Pan-American route in health. And one has to do with the phase 3 of LACPAS, where we will work on telemedicine, and the other one has to do with the work done by Raxel for that obviously is a relevant part of LACPAS project, and is looking to drive aspects or discussions that are more related to governments. And these projects are more technical, and sometimes they don't talk about much governance. So we will be talking with Raxel and calling on assemblies and meetings to drive the work that is being carried now and close the gaps and the aspects that are really not so technical. I leave you the contacts that we have and how to join, or if you have questions. And this is the presentation. I give the word to Martha, and thank you very much for your attention. Thank you, Carlos. I think that for everyone, the uh, path is very clear. And as Marcelo said, the work of integration that we are doing in the different areas of PAHO, but also the harmonic work that is being thought of for a region from the side of different partners and from different people like Jennifer, the SENS, the IDB. Thank you all so much. I don't know if anyone has a comment or question. But as you said, well, this is a road and a path that we will continue having. These communication spaces will continue to be open for everyone. I don't see any hands raised. So I don't know if Jennifer or Marcelo have any comment. Well, well, just to say that last year we had 8 countries that participated in Connectathon, and maybe some of them that are connected right now, they might be interested in speaking about their experience. And that's basically just by discussions on vaccines, on how you use. There's as many discussions that are there. There's a follow-up that you do with the EDH that basically it's at the worldwide level. So obviously we will have their participation this year too. And this year we expect to have many more than 8 countries. So we hope to have a high participation. And Carlos, maybe we can also share some experiences of the Connectathon last year. And this is, what is the experience you've had? We're open to comments and questions, and every comment or history that you would like to share is very welcome. Marcelo? Basically, I would just like to thank Carlos and Sonia. The presentation is fantastic. And I would like to ask the people that are connected that many times we have many internal discussions on how we can communicate sometimes very complex and technical topics to audiences that do not dominate the concepts. So maybe it would be interesting that the people who are connected can tell us if there's something that you consider that we must do from the point of view of communications, because in my past life, I was director of communications, and I was also always worried or concerned of how we can communicate certain systems or concepts to audiences that are not used to these terms in their day-to-day activities. So if you have any comment to us, it would be very useful and valuable, and in order to adjust that and adjust what needs to be adjusted, or understand maybe if there's maybe a line that we should prioritize over others. But otherwise, that's my comment. Thank you once again, Marta.
No veo ninguna mano levantada.
I don't see any hand raised.
Pero, como les digo,
As
es
I
más
said
fácil,
before,
ok, Luis Fernando tiene un comentario.
Luis has a comment.
Muy interesante el tema de la ruta panamericana.
Very interesting, the topic of Inter-American interoperability route. We will open up the interoperability Inter-American route. So we will advance first in that path or route. So basically, that's what we want to do, to share information between countries, so we can get to the person regardless of where they are, where they live, where they were born. I think that's the interest that we all have in ensuring the well-being of people that live in the region, independently of where they were born or where they live, and regarding other variables too. Pablo, thank you for your comment. We have a supporting team from the IDB and also from the SENS. This is a real interagency work, and we want to continue working like that, so the countries can see us as one single idea with one single path to advance. We are all aligned. And the idea is that whenever you want to ask one or the other, we are absolutely coordinated in this work network. Thank you very much. Well, Mai, would you like to close? I would just like to say that nobody thought the dimension that this work took on. And when we talked about this in 2019, and having gone through half a pandemic, I think Jenny visualized this. And the truth that it is highly challenging what is going on. And because as a region, we can make a difference. So thank you so much. Thank you, all of you. Thank you for the people who are with us. We would like to invite you to join us in this effort and this challenge to continue working together. And as Mai said, in Latin America, obviously, we will continue working on this. We have different communication channels, and you can speak obviously with all of us. And as Carlos said, the idea is that all of the countries can standardize and to begin from the same place to the place we want to arrive. so are willing to work on this. And thank you for your participation today. Thank you, everyone. And we continue all together. Thank you.
Hasta luego.
Chao.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Gracias. Chao.